we're up and
Success.
running. Yeah. Okay, all right.
Or somebody will let us know if not.
Yeah, I think they're on, Lauren.
Test.
Yep.
It's, I've got 7:08. We'll open the June 10th, 2024 Planning and Zoning regular meeting. Roll call. I'm George Clausen, Chair. Marchand is Vice Chair. John Cooney. Craig Sand is absent, excused. Willard Platt. Charlene Lavoy is here as an alternate. Adam Quigliaroli is here as an alternate. Rista Malaka is absent, excused. I'll seat you, Charlene, for Craig Sandon.
Okay.
And the next thing is public comment. Do we have any comments from anybody? Oh, okay. Agenda review, anything on the only thing I would say is Rista has been working on this. It's only, what, 2 years, Peter, on the?
Yeah, a couple years.
So, she's been working on the last part of this, so we're gonna delay the number 6, the old business parking types, outdoor lighting and landscaping until our 24th.
So is everyone upset with me and I'm walking into a bee's nest?
No, we're
Just about ready to adjourn.
we did,
Almost done.
I'm very sorry I'm late.
All right, so on the agenda review, we'll move 6 old business parking types, et cetera, will be go to the 24th.
okay.
So that'd be June 24th meeting. All right, so we don't have any public hearings. Number 5, new business, PZC 24-7. It's a special permit for home office occupation. Applicant Skylar Puffer, Mundane Manufacturing LLC. Owner Andrew W. Gregg. Location 230 Coe Street. Proposal online craft business for laser engraving and 3D printing. Main area of use and equipment located in back garage. No signage, no customers or foot traffic. No large deliveries, no change to landscape or utilities. We have a motion to set that up for the 24th of
I'll make a
June.
motion that PZC 24-7 special permit home office occupation for Skylar Puffer Mundane Manufacturing LLC is scheduled for July 24th, 7 p.m.
Okay,
Second?
John's second. Any comments or questions about
Is
it?
it June 24th?
Yes.
June 24th,
Yeah.
excuse me, yes.
Oh,
Get the right month there. I'm pushing summer.
What are you going, backwards?
It's still June.
All right, any comments on the
rush us.
motion? All in favor? Okay. PZC 24-8. This is the special permit greenhouse nursery commercial. That's gonna be, we expect it to come in for the 24th meeting, so there'll be no activity on it. We're not gonna schedule a public hearing for it yet, because we don't have a application that's complete. So
Correct.
you expect that for the 24th?
Yes, we're gonna talk about that.
Okay, so that will. All right. So, we've got minutes. This is 7, the approval of minutes, May 16th. You got minutes of the May 8th.
Make a motion, minutes of our planning and zoning meeting for Wednesday, May 8th be approved.
Second.
Okay, motion is made and second. Any comments or questions about it? All in favor? Okay. And then, Peter, you chaired a special meeting on May 16th.
Yes, make a motion, the special meeting of planning and zoning on Thursday, May 16th be approved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor? I abstained, I wasn't there. communications, Lance?
Nope,
Oh,
nothing came
okay.
in.
All right. So, let's, you handed out a bunch of sheets here. Is that stuff from our current regulations?
Correct.
Okay. I don't know any of us that have a set of current regulations, frankly. Okay. So tell us about what you gave us.
Yeah, so before we dive into any kind of discussion, I just want to give you how this came to be. And I think that's important to know because I know I try to do my best to keep you guys in the loop, and I probably gave you too much, which may have been overwhelming. And literally, we're overwhelmed, and that's why. So 2 weeks ago, we get an inquiry from Nova Farms that is interested in potentially purchasing property in town, and this came about because at the end of May, there was a change in the statute. There was a change in the state regulations that allowed for Winchester to be one of the sites. And that's why it kind of got fast-tracked, or whatever you want to say. So we met with the potential applicants 2 weeks ago, more of a meet and greet to talk about what they do. And at the time, I may mention they were looking at specifically at a site that's listed for sale, 257, 259 Torringford Street, which is, we all know, Scott Bashan's property. They liked the idea, the location, because it was kind of tucked in. It seemed like it could work out for them. They had to find farmland. That's what they were looking for. And if you look at the ads for Scott's property, it kind of presents itself as farmland, which is what we know is his goal. So they talked about,
You mean legally designated as farmland?
well, just like, it has to have that character already, I guess, of
Okay, so
farmland.
it's not a designation.
Right.
Okay.
Ideally, you'd want prime soils, which we know Scott's property does not. So this is what happened. Last week, it all fell apart because they came back with their soil testing and they said, well, there's no way we could do planting right away because we'd have to basically restore the land, put down topsoil, and make that improvements. So that fell apart. I think it was literally like Wednesday when this all kind of went crazy, and they said, all right, we need some more sites. There's another site we looked at on the Colebrook Winchester town line that's currently for sale. The problem with that site is it's not farmland ready to go. It would
Where
have
is
to be,
that?
so kind of near the not the windmills, but as you're driving out of town on the left. Towards
44.
Colebrook. Yep, Lowry and
Yeah.
44, Norfolk
Yeah,
Road
most of
is
it's
that
in
property.
Colebrook.
And there's one field, but it's technically in Colebrook. I had pitched to him, well, I said, well, if you got the land and you wanted to donate that section in Colebrook, because I can't put it in Colebrook, to DEP, that actually abuts adjacent land of the Algonquin State Forest. So that all didn't work out. It's just been a whirlwind. So then last kind of minute planning, I said to Jeff, I wasn't even in the office that day, I said, why don't you take a look at 115 Old Robertsville Road, because I knew the family had just recently put it up for their free cut for a subdivision, and didn't really know what was going on with the family, but I was hoping that they were kind of amenable to either conservation for the property or farmland preservation or something. And so I said, talk to Nova Farms, see if they want to try to make that connection. They went over, they talked with Kim. Kim was amenable to at least discussing it. Kim Langlil is the property owner. And if you're not familiar with it, it's a farmhouse from like the 1800s. It's in tough shape. There's a bunch of barn outbuildings that are falling down. Needs a little love. And so basically Wallace, who had been dealing with the most part, had not even seen the property. So they were just doing it from aerial photos, like, okay, we can maybe see if this works. So they have a local person that came out and met with Kim. They put together their plans, as you saw, are not complete. They're not even to scale. It's really conceptual. It's very conceptual, in my opinion. And we just were out on the site now to kind of, and that was my first time seeing the site in person. And actually, for what they're planning, this will work very well for them because the field that exists in the hedgerows that line it are like a natural buffer already, with very minimal site work necessary. There is a slope to the property, but it's not at all intense. And the wetlands, that, as you may see, the fencing and the field was proposed to be in, is out of the picture now. I mean, Joe Wynot is the surveyor that's working with him. He's like, is that what your intent was, to put the fencing into the woods? And he's like, no. So don't even really, again, I'm glad you have this information. I'm glad we've been talking about it a little bit, but you're gonna get a much more complete packet on the 24th, which will have all the correct information. I'm gonna be perfectly honest, this is totally out of my wheelhouse. I'm not a cannabis user, never tried anything. I have no idea what I'm talking about. I'm learning from what our regulations, stated that was allowed a few years ago were put in. When they talked to us about a rural residential site, I said, well, cannabis marijuana facilities are not allowed in that zone. It's only production and innovation in Town Gateway, whatever. So I said, well, why don't you come before the board with a special permit application for greenhouse/nursery commercial, which obviously is for cannabis, so, there has to be that extra layer of review and considerations, but at least this was a mechanism for them to come before you to apply for a special permit. So that's what I suggested them. They were fine with that. I know a lot of the questions came up with irrigation. They're gonna have 4 tanks put on the site. Again, when they get into their public hearing, I think you're gonna be very impressed with what they have. And also, they have a great example in Massachusetts. He was just explaining to me now, it's not like your traditional cultivation or whatever you wanna call it. It's like drip irrigation that they're doing, and I'm not gonna explain this well. That's why I was really hoping Wallace might just like have a conversation with you guys. It's their market is the gummies, I guess. And they're opening a store in New Britain, and they're opening another one in Bridgeport. So there's an advantage to being right off of Route 8, and that's why they liked potentially moving to town. What else do you need to know?
Speak on the town planner letter?
What's that?
Can you speak on the town planner letter? And Paul Harrington give us a recommendation.
Oh, yeah. Well, he was hoping, even though they had an incomplete application, that you might consider making a public hearing date tonight. And when I talked to Wallace, like I said, who's the representative, he said, yeah, that would have been ideal, so they could get their approvals next meeting, have that 15-day period where if there's any kind of appeal, and then just really go, they want to get the security fence in, like the day after they've got their approval in place. But he said 2 weeks is fine, they could still work with that. They want a 2-month growing window, which would work for July and August for them. So that's why they said that was fine. And so we rushed this with an application. I'm supposed to take them as they come. We tried to walk them through what they needed as much as possible. Had another excellent conversation. I gave another laundry list to Wallace. I said, these are the things you're gonna need the board's gonna ask you, or else you're just gonna get bumped out. So I think they're gonna be very well prepared next meeting. I think you'll be happy in the sense with the application. We don't have to.
First of all, they could
approve, but-
present a completed application. And I presume you're gonna review this so that we get a completed application.
Right, not the day of.
And we're not gonna
Let's do.
hear it at the next meeting, we're gonna set
Right,
it up.
just to receive it. Yep.
Because, I don't see where it's permitted.
Right, unless they, like I said, the greenhouse nursery commercial is what they'd go for the special permit
Well,
as.
that's nice, but it's not the cannabis,
Right.
and that's why I think we'd have to make a modification to our regulations in order to deal with that and include it in that, if that's what our choice is. And if it isn't, then it should go by.
The other benefit to this site is it's right along the edge of the production and innovation zone, which it is allowed for special permit. So, I mean, that would be a zone change, which again is a little bit more involved than what they had originally proposed, but.
All right, well, let's talk about it. Do you have any comments?
So in the application, he talks about section 149, the social equity cultivator. Can we get some information on that? Can you give
Yeah,
us-
I just asked a
send it
little
to
bit
us?
about it. Absolutely.
And is that the state regulation that was just changed, or
Right,
you've been?
that's part of it.
We should have a copy of that.
Yeah, Yeah, I don't even have a copy,
And
but yes.
what does
Well,
that-
it's available online.
Okay.
Sure.
And does that,
Is that
you
it?
know, what does that allow him to do?
So May 17th, the bill passed. It's House Bill 5150, and it amended the state Senate bill of 1201 back in 2021. And it pretty much, it expanded operations of cannabis growers. And so just 4 weeks ago? Three
Yeah.
weeks ago.
3 weeks ago, literally.
It made it so that a cannabis grower can come to this town because we have a disproportionately impacted area
Correct.
in Winstead. And then, since we have an area in our municipality, then they can go and seek a cultivation site within the whole municipality, not just the area, not just
Right.
the impacted area.
That's what he explained to me, yes.
So then, that's what triggered, I think, them to come to Winchester and seek
But
out
it doesn't
land.
specify indoors or outdoor cultivation or anything.
It does. So specifically, because Nova specializes, I think they have a specialty. They tout themselves as an outdoor grower.
Yes.
They do have indoor facilities too. But specifically, I think what they were after is, and they also champion this one, is in the case of an exclusively outdoor grow in a municipality containing any portion of a disproportionately impacted area, provided such outdoor grow is conducted on land that such municipality has approved for agricultural and farming uses. So that's what you guys were talking about earlier, whether it's existing farmland.
Have we? Have we?
Well, I'm saying, you guys mentioned it, because you talked about Scott
Yeah,
Bouchon's land,
yeah.
right?
Right.
We
Yes.
have not talked about that.
No, okay.
Okay. Has approved for agriculture or farming uses, and all cultivation complies with the provisions of the regulations adopted. So our regulations haven't adopted anything yet, right, for this bill that just passed 3 weeks ago.
So we'd have to do that first.
And policies and procedures issued pursuant to section 21A 421J, as amended by this act, permitting the outdoor cultivation of cannabis. Right now, our regulations cover up to a micro cultivator, which is 2 to 10,000 square feet of grow space. They're proposing 250,000 square feet,
Right.
which is about 10 acres. So they would be considered a cannabis cultivator, which is anything in excess of 15,000 square feet. We currently do not have that in our regulations. Whether, shame on us or what, but we gotta.
No, we haven't, because this is so new.
Yeah, I was
We-
gonna
we
say,
have
how
not-
we've
Through
had
the
a
chair.
chance.
Sorry.
Yeah, we've not gone through that, and, but,
Not less than 15,000 square feet.
Yeah.
So that needs over.
Anything over 15,000, yeah.
Yeah.
Which we currently do not have regulations for.
All right, so,
that's, when I was talking to
Yeah.
Lance earlier today, that's what I was saying. If there's something we identify that we want to bring up and discuss, it doesn't mean we're going to agree to it, but at least discuss it, and then we will either vote it up or vote it down. And, but the problem is, any changes to the regulations,
require a process.
yeah, a process, including the notifying the COG and adjoining communities.
Mhm.
And so we said we should talk about it tonight and see, is it something that we want to go about doing? But what it's going to do is push them out of cultivation in July. And if in fact we even allow it, so. But go ahead, Louis, what else?
Well, I just wanted to know what that meant,
Yeah.
and does that limit
Could
us?
you ask that question again, because I didn't really hear it the first time? I'm sorry.
What was that?
Could you say your question again? I didn't hear what you said
Oh,
the first time. I'm
in his
sorry.
application, he has the social equity, section 149, that allows to cultivate business in any municipality that's.
And that's the law that you, the
That's
change
what
that
Adam-
you
Right.
just looked at.
I believe that's House Bill.
So I just wanted to know, does that let him come in and do his cultivation anywheres? Or does that have to go by our zoning regs?
I think it has to go
It
by
has
the
to,
zoning regs.
yeah.
I believe that too,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yes.
That
I mean,
was
that's
my
cool.
question.
Yeah, yeah.
That's why I brought
So
that up.
thank you
If
for
we've
doing
got to
that.
have some modification to the regulations, then,
Okay, but as far as the rest of it, George, in terms of us discussing now modifications to the regulation, I am not prepared at this meeting. This is the first I'm
no, I'm saying that's.
understanding it.
yeah,
If we're gonna
I agree.
allow, if we're going to start thinking about whether we're gonna allow large outdoor cultivation of cannabis, and we'll have to have regulations for it.
Exactly.
And we get, you know,
No, we'll have to.
none of
do
us
it.
are experts on that. It's
No,
like,
I agree.
we gotta
We've
kind of,
we've got some stuff that's going on in Massachusetts that part of it
Yeah.
may be adapted to what we need here to at least consider,
yeah,
but we've gotta be able to put that together.
yeah.
We're not doing
Well,
it tonight.
plus, I think, I mean, I at least wanna know, cause I do go to Great Barrington, and the pass is there on the left, and all that's indoors. They don't do any outdoor cultivation, and I know that they did that at the time because of the issue of the, odor, the smell of the, I guess the plant even, I guess I should know this, but I don't, that the plant, just growing emits something, a fragrance. I don't think it emits anything
No, but it's-
psychoactive, but it,
But you said Sheffield has,
Yeah,
Some
so
things.
they
Sheffield has regs?
mentioned Sheffield as their original site.
cause they already have regs.
Yeah,
deal with it?
they were one of the first, I think, that.
So how do
that
they deal
championed
with
it.
the, odor? The only
I don't
cultivator up there in Great Bear is the pass,
On
but
the
it's,
left.
yeah, but it's covered.
No,
It's
Well,
in
they
the
obviously-
places.
Nova is
You
in
drive by
Sheffield. I
the
was by it
past-
Sunday, so. Nova is in Sheffield. I was by the place Sunday.
Yeah, and it's open?
Yeah, wide open, yeah. You can't really see it from the road just because
I
it's a
think
long
that's
driveway
right.
Are
going
there
into it and it's
neighbors?
fenced in.
I mean, the
It
issue.
borders the Housatonic
Another
River.
business.
And then
Yeah,
the nearest
well,
neighbors are
so
about
the issue
300
is
feet
if they were
away.
doing it on Route 7 in
The
Great
rest of-
Barrington, they worried about the odor
Correct.
to the rest of.
it's all cornfields.
Yeah, but Robertsville Road has residents,
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean,
No,
so
I
we
agree.
gotta
I
know
agree.
how far the odors disperse
Well,
and all of that.
yeah, I think it has to be something totally enclosed, where they can,
Well, I don't know, why, nobody has
Well,
presented us
they
with any
described
information.
a little bit the process. They do like a flash freezing, so that actually helps with limiting the odor as well.
Okay,
That's
but the
being
point
harvested.
is, Lance, I wanna know what the standards are in the industry, not from an applicant, but from either you or somebody to come in and teach us about that. I mean, I'm not gonna make up a regulation
No, no,
based
no, I
on
agree.
what I know, because I don't know anything about it.
and I do not either.
So I need to know how far odors are emitted, what it is. All I know is that it does smell, but I don't know anything about it technically.
I'll speak a little more about Sheffield, because I did pull their town reports that reported on each, you can see it as it progresses towards each year. And so they opened up in 2019, I believe in Sheffield. And each year, you can see in their annual report, and I think that they have,
The town's annual, no,
yeah,
or the
town-
company's?
town's
the
annual
town's
report.
yeah.
right? And there was discussions of odor, and I think they actually allocated 40 grand to hire someone to assess odor, but they never ended up hiring anyone.
Okay.
And eventually, I believe in 2021, there was a public referendum, and the public ended up pushing regulations to cap the number of cultivation sites and dispensaries.
Okay.
So they
Okay,
kind
so
of went.
right there, there's questions to be
Yes,
answered
yeah.
for us. I
Well,
mean,
there's data, I'd say, because they
Data,
went through the
yeah.
life cycle of inception, bringing this on,
yeah,
and then dealing with any pains there were,
Yeah,
right? And then
right,
say, okay, we're
right.
good for now.
right,
We're
right,
capping it,
right.
you know?
But
So,
again, that is.
benchmarking Sheffield.
That's in a very rural area with apparently I mean, Robertsville Road has neighbors on
Exactly.
Taylor Brook, Robertsville
Well,
Road, both
this one
sides.
has neighbors. There's 3 or 4 houses within,
In Sheffield,
within 700-800 feet.
were they the ones who brought up the odor
I don't
thing?
know. I
Yeah,
have
yeah,
no idea.
okay.
I was-
Well, the point is, that's a
Yeah,
whole big thing.
I did
You
talk to the
can't
fire
just-
chief up there. I had a discussion with him over the weekend, and as far as the fire department, they had not had any issue with them, but I didn't ask them about odor issues or anything else.
Okay.
Well, I remember reading about the Great Barrington, the past,
Right,
because
yes.
they had to, I don't know that they originally brought in a enclosed proposal, but they moved to that because other people
Because of
were
the
aware
odor.
of
I
it.
remember,
And, they changed their plan to make it an enclosed
Okay.
facility. Okay, that's about all I know about it, but that means there's an issue we need to consider here
Absolutely.
in terms of our regulations and,
Absolutely.
our neighbors.
So, do you have any more comments?
Yeah, well, I was just had looked through the equipment list that they provided. They're looking at an office trailer and a storage trailer, and I mean, basically, neither one of those are allowed in our regulations, other than office trailer for construction purposes during construction.
Even for farm use? We wouldn't allow it?
didn't see any where it says that for farm use, nope. But, I mean, these are just questions I'm bringing up, and you had already covered with them about the dumpster enclosure, things
Yep.
like that, that we'd be looking at.
Well, I think first of all, we gotta discuss, where do we wanna go with the regulations? Do we wanna do the research on it, come up with a regulation that would satisfy this?
So your point is, the threshold question is, do we want large cultivators in Winsted?
Yes.
How are we gonna make that decision? Right now, I mean, that's a
Well, I
planning
mean,
issue.
I think the first issue is, do we wanna draw up regulations that would allow that to be considered?
Yeah, but that's only if we think that it's a good
Uh,
idea to
it's a
allow
good point. No, I
cultivation
agree. I
in,
agree.
on large scale. I think we would call this a large scale, right, 250,000 square feet. So do we want that in Winsted? How do we make that decision? We're a planning board, but we have never had discussion about that, so
Oh,
I'm not
yeah.
gonna make that decision tonight.
But, how big is the operation in Sheffield?
90 acres, I believe it said.
90 acres?
It's
Uh,
close to the same size, I would
Same
say.
size.
Just
Well,
a
this
quick
is-
estimate.
This would be on like 23 acres, I think, what they're proposing.
It's a lot smaller.
Yeah,
They're
it's
growing-
advertised as 90, but it doesn't look 90 in Sheffield. Uses 90 acres of land, but
Yeah,
that's
and they're
much
not
smaller.
using 90,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't think so.
They're not using the whole,
Yeah.
What do they have here? How much acreage is there here?
what'd you say, 23?
I think you mentioned 23 acres is basically that field and forest land around on that section. And then there's another 4-acre parcel by the farm.
Well, this
Well, I mean, this is-
is a threshold issue to determine.
The point,
whether
though,
we
is,
want
as
it.
far as I'm concerned, in my interpretation, and I might be wrong, but we'd have to do a modification to our regulations if we in fact want to consider this. If we don't, we don't. But what's?
I don't think you're wrong.
Okay.
So how do we decide whether we want to do it or not?
So now, last
mean,
time
that
when we
should be-
did this ordinance, we sent it to the Board of Selectmen, so they had to approve it, and they changed it, because they limited where the selling the stores. So if we're gonna change,
On the retail,
yeah, on the
Yeah.
retail side.
Yeah.
So if we're gonna modify this, we're gonna have to go back to the Board of
We don't,
Selectmen?
we're not mandated to do that.
Yeah.
No, we just
That
felt
was
that
what
it
I
was
was gonna ask.
conscious that we wanted to have
Yeah,
the
right.
consideration of the Board of Selectmen, because it was a whole new issue for Connecticut. And we were talking about retail stuff.
There's your facility there.
yeah,
It's a
because they're
facility.
very separate, the retail versus cultivation.
Yeah.
Which our regulations acknowledge there's a difference, and we were only allowing a micro
Right,
cultivator.
Going in, you can't see anything, and even if you keep going over
What's-
the down
did
below,
we
you see
define
the
it?
fence.
Yes,
For some reason I gave you the
section
impression
C,
it was that.
which,
Yeah.
what, page 120, George, section C.
George, there's,
Yeah, it's right here, yeah.
there's a satellite view of their Sheffield facility.
Did you see it at night? Pete? Did you see it at night?
I wasn't there at night, I was there mid-afternoon yesterday. It looked
'Cause they
like there
say-
was, it looked like there was a couple of security lights, you could see light poles.
Yeah.
This is,
The closest I could get was within a quarter
here's
mile.
Peter's, this is Sheffield.
Because they require 24-hour surveillance.
Right.
So it's 24-hour lights.
Cameras and lights.
360.
poles.
Doesn't look
Okay,
like
well,
they're
that's another
really
big thing
near
then.
anything,
So
that's
I can
probably
speak
how
to
they
that a
got
little
away
bit
with
too.
the older thing.
The lighting?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sheer distance,
Yeah,
Yeah.
could be.
that's what it looks like.
But who owns the rest of the properties? I mean, the
It
future
sounds like they
development.
own it
Well,
if it's that large.
I think everything else is owned by Farmer, because that's all cornfield next to it.
Yeah.
Oh, it is.
Everything to the right is all corn. No,
But it doesn't mean it can't be used for something else.
no, but I don't think they own the rest of that property.
Yeah.
I don't know that for
Does
sure.
that look like 90 acres cultivated there?
No.
Doesn't look like
I looked at
No.
it together, it doesn't.
I would say not. Not looking at that.
So,
Looks like maybe 20 to me.
I would say maybe 20, but it doesn't give you a scale on this map, so.
so the question of lighting came up. I made sure to ask them that it is full cutoff lighting. The description is saying, actually for the plants themselves, they want at least amount of lighting as possible. So that would be something that, the board would have to determine where,
Step back, please.
I guess, how much illumination would be necessary. But they use infrared cameras for the security anyways, so the lighting is not necessary for that.
Lighting's not necessary for security?
for those kind of cameras, I guess, so they can film at night.
Okay, but obviously, this commission has decided that micro cultivation is permitted and retail is permitted. But we haven't opined or adopted regulations on large-scale cultivation. So under the regs as they exist, it's not permitted, right? Am I right?
That's my interpretation.
So
At this point.
if we're gonna change the regs, that's a process that's gotta start, and we've gotta know more about what a large-scale operation requires, looks like, the pros and cons. We don't know any of that at this moment. I don't anyway.
Well, I don't either.
Well, I thought you were a cannabis expert, George.
I didn't know that.
Jeez. Must have missed a couple meetings.
We did a special meeting.
That's right. We designated you our cannabis expert.
Oh, okay.
You know what happens when you miss a meeting? I do.
Yeah. All right, well, so what's the subject we're gonna do then? If we wanna create a regulation that modifies our regulations to, that would,
I wanna know the impact of a large-scale cultivator on.
Well, number one, we, selectmen have a meeting next week, I assume, and that's something that we should send a letter and ask them what's their wishes. Do they want us to change the regulations?
Based
they
on
want it
the
in town?
recent,
Why would we ask the board of
We don't-
selectmen?
we don't
Why would
have
we
to
ask
do
them
that.
No, we don't have to, but I think we should,
well,
to get some
in-
input.
and
Okay.
in line with what you're saying,
Right.
you know, along with this paperwork that came in, which was not complete, we get a letter from our new town manager. And I think he is misinterpreting that
Well.
there's a lot of money involved here that comes into the community.
Yeah.
And we don't make decisions on whether there's money coming into the community, but it's our obligation to try to help build a community so it's a strong community and it'll, you know, but,
So my question was on the dollar amount here.
yeah.
How does that value get attached to that grow area? Because it's a farm.
I
What are
agree.
you're not taxing buildings, there's no equipment, there's one page of equipment list. Where's that number get attached to a value for tax purposes?
So I didn't quite understand that either, but tried to ask, and I think there's something with the product that they make, the town gets revenue from it. That's considered taxable.
But you didn't ask the question?
I did ask Wallace, and I still don't understand,
Well,
so.
I know with the sales, that's taxed and the town gets taxed on it. Great Barrington is in a fight now with all their dispensaries up there that they want money back from them.
But how about the growing part of it?
Yeah, and I don't know.
This is a wholesale
That
operation.
was the social equity part.
Right.
that's exactly what I was thinking.
So I mean, in my brain, and it doesn't mean
That's what I thought you had said, that's why I said.
I saw that number too, and I just had to like
Yeah.
go search.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's irrelevant to this board.
Exactly.
But the way I understand it is that tax revenue is obtained at the retail point, and only at the retail point for Connecticut.
Okay.
There's other states, like in New Jersey, you could find Nova's presentation for New Jersey, Woodridge, New Jersey, and they'll have on their economic page, economic benefits, they actually have 2%, and it'll show like their projected revenue for Woodridge as a cultivator, but that's because the state says that, you know, if you're a cultivator, you're gonna be wholesale taxed up to 2% by the municipality.
They go to the municipality.
Yeah, that goes to municipality, but as a cultivator in Connecticut, you don't get anything.
Nothing of that.
You do, I'm sorry, I'm not gonna say you don't get anything. You do get, like, the social equity, so they did say, you know, let us know what you guys need in terms of your community.
He brought that up, and I
Yeah.
said Katie Vale, our social services director, would really be the best person in the pipeline to be like, you know, what would we want to consider? But they're amenable to,
Yeah.
really anything.
But it's not
additional.
required, correct?
I mean, you could probably make it require and approve approval, but
Well,
that's
we-
part of their,
We're not a taxation group.
Yeah,
You-
we're not,
You can make it required in the, no, not taxes, but
Right.
the social equity portion.
the social equity.
And up
Okay.
to up to a limit. You
Okay.
gotta read it. There's a lot of language
that's not in
there.
lieu of taxes?
No, not in lieu of taxes.
Yeah.
It's in addition to
Okay.
the retail tax.
Yep.
You get no tax, no one gets any tax on cultivation in Connecticut.
Well, if they.
States vary.
But the property would be taxed, but they don't, if they own the property is taxed, and isn't that what you were saying? I mean,
Well-
it's just a farmland,
So if it's
What's the-
taxed as farmland, it's minimal pricing.
negligible,
Yeah, right.
yeah,
If it's taxed as commercial, it's different,
yeah.
but
Likewise for the property, the equipment that's used, if it's used in agriculture specifically or solely in agriculture, I did veggie farming before this. Is that, that's tax exemption too.
Right.
If they know.
For
They
anything
know
for agricultural purposes.
State
taxes, yeah.
regulations, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's not for us, right? That's,
Yeah,
No, but it's to
I don't know why
understand that. I
Paul's
think
saying
the town manager made a mistake in his
yeah.
letter to us saying that this is an important consideration. Well, it's not part of our consideration, however. And, but I think it's an incorrect statement in his letter.
unless they opened up a retail location in Winston.
And they are interested in potentially like the John Garoppolo Drive
Yeah.
building on there to
I mean,
expand,
but
but.
to say it's a $10 million operation, and there's I don't even think the most successful one in Great Barrington is a $10 million operation. I don't know. But anyway,
Well,
the point is, there's a lot we don't know, and so to just continue talking
So
like
the
this
bottom
is-
line is, I mean, where do you want to go with it? Do you want to study modification to our regulations to,
Well,
that
what is it?
potentially could
I
prevent
think
this?
the threshold question still is, do we
Do we
want
want it?
to consider having large-scale cannabis farming in Winston? And I don't even know how to start to answer that.
You start by looking at, applicability and purpose of our zoning regulations. There's 21 items here. Is it in, the spirit
Yes.
of what we're doing?
I understand that, but without knowing more about what cultivation, large-scale cultivation of cannabis entails, what the pros and cons, it's not like growing
I
corn.
mean, there's a benefit
We
to
sort of
that.
know what growing corn's about, but large-scale cannabis cultivation is something we don't really have any experience with. I mean, maybe I
No,
grew a
the
plant out in the
only
backyard.
thing that
but-
would do if we were to adjust our regulations accordingly is to protect that property to be farmland, because if it's not, then there's a good potential it could go
So,
in another
Adam,
direction.
since you seem to have looked into this, is the state, since they have considered these kinds of things now, have they addressed that issue of large scale and its impact on farmland and that whole thing? Is there, you're saying consider these, I get it, but has the state done that? Because they've done a lot more thinking about, the state legislature's done a lot more thinking about cannabis cultivation in Connecticut than we have.
So the state Senate bill was 303 pages.
Yeah,
Oh,
okay.
Jesus.
And then the House bill passed 3 weeks ago is now 103 pages.
Okay, so we don't know about that, I mean, we should have some sort of review of this.
I'm not an expert.
Yeah, no, I know, I get it, you have to have some legislative analysis, because we have to build off of that, we're a subset of
Well,
we're a state
the other
agency.
thing is,
so-
what's the life expectancy of an operation like this? What happens? Does it die out in 5 years or 10 years and it'll be resold for something else? I don't
Does it
know.
cross-pollinate with corn, and then who knows what happens? I mean, what happens? I don't know.
Looking at the map of the property, the other thing you've got to think is we've got the town of Barkhamsted is right there on the border of that property,
Yeah,
too.
well, they'd get notified, right, of
Well,
any
exactly,
changes in the
but I mean, we also
regulation,
have to
yeah,
consider them.
yeah.
No, that's
Um,
true.
Maybe you can reach out to the COG, see if they have any information they can provide us to guide us.
Yeah, I mean, I met with Rista this morning, and we did talk about this quite a bit.
So is there anybody else in Connecticut doing a large-scale cultivation? Okay,
I don't know.
I think that's one of the problems from stuff I've read, is that the dealers, because the way this law is written, that it has to be grown in Connecticut to be sold in Connecticut. That's the law when the state passed it.
Oh.
They can't buy it from Massachusetts
What?
and sell it in Connecticut. When the
no,
state
it's a
passed
federal
it-
law.
Okay.
It's
Is
federal.
it federal? Okay.
Yeah, it's a
I know
federal-
this,
no,
so you mean
no.
if you're gonna have cannabis products, whether they're
You're
gummies.
gonna sell them,
It's gotta be grown in Connecticut?
yes,
Jeez.
yes.
Wow, that's,
Massachusetts the same way, it's gotta be grown in the state.
I don't know, that's.
It's
okay.
taxed differently too. It's not taxed the same in
You know,
both
that's
states.
one
Wow.
thing. So I
So
know
for,
there's
for the
indoor
industry to be
growers and
successful, it's gotta be grown here.
there's several indoor growers around the state. They took old factory buildings and renovated them and,
I thought I saw
grow 'em
in here.
inside.
Like doing it hydroponically or something?
yeah, like something at 10 Bridge Street that they do, you know, do it inside.
Who bought that industrial laundry building on Grapple Drive?
Oh, Santoros.
Cielo Santoro. Is it?
I don't
I
think
think it's
I don't
still in
think it's
operation, but
Yeah.
not fully.
No.
No,
They've got some
no,
I thought it was up for sale.
financial issues, yeah.
yeah,
Alright,
but
well,
nobody, somebody was
I
there
feel like
who's
there's a lot we don't know about this, so.
looking to buy it, but
Yeah, because it says in the town manager's letter, Nova Farms is a $10 million operation that will become a top taxpayer for revenue for the town of Winchester.
Starting November 2024.
How do they know that?
How do they know that? That was exactly what I was just thinking.
well, that's what I've said, the same
Yeah,
thing.
whatever. I think we can disregard
Doesn't make
that.
sense.
So they do is 250,000 square feet, and then what's your density of plant, you know,
Yeah.
per square foot?
Mhm.
And then what's the,
Some calculation.
yeah, what's your yield out of your cannabis plant?
Well,
Times the
But then
US
again,
market
that's
rate.
if they're doing retail. If they're not
Yeah,
doing
exactly.
retail,
yeah.
There's no retail, there's not.
then that goes right out the
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
we mentioned that.
Well, is the COG should be familiar with the legislative intent of those two bills, those 400 pages of those two new bills. Somebody has got to have already analyzed that. We're certainly not going to do that here. So I'd like to know what the legislative intent is regarding large-scale cultivation in Connecticut.
Can you, make that a written inquiry?
Yep.
Of
we
COG,
Of COG.
at least of COG,
Yeah,
yeah.
at least the COG,
Yeah.
to see if they can guide us, that's what they're there for.
How many communities have been opened up with this new, app?
There's a map you can look at for all the,
Don't,
DIA.
I'm just curious, I'm sure it was more than one community.
Yes. Well,
All right.
Torrington has a large district.
Well, before we go anywhere, let's get the answer from the COG and figure out.
you said you were talking with Brista, what were
Yeah,
you
well, we were talking about parking this morning, but she had been part of when Still River Wellness went into right on,
Yeah,
on
down
the
the line,
line.
yep.
Her and Marty Connor.
Yeah.
Marty
Yeah.
Connor, yeah.
So she was a little bit aware, much
But
more
that's a
than
retail.
Jeff and I.
Yeah, but
That's a
that's
retail.
That's all
Right.
retail,
Yeah,
yeah.
but she's not aware of anything going on in Litchfield or in COG area
I
about
don't know,
this?
but
Yeah.
I'll
Well, that's
ask.
the issue.
Yep.
What does COG know about it that they can share with
And
us?
we should have something in writing so we
Yeah.
all can share and read it.
Well, and given that Adam has the citations to the legislation, I think we can use that, because, I mean, it's in there. All those bills have legislative intent, and you can research it and find out what they were talking about. And I'm sure somebody came up there and talked about large-scale cultivation in Connecticut, so
But if-
otherwise they wouldn't adopt those bills.
But you recommend we read that?
No. I recommend that, we're a volunteer commission.
Right.
I recommend that there's either someone at the legislature or someone at our local committee, which is COG, who's going to have reviewed that or needs to review that and get that information to every planning board in the service area.
Sure.
I'm not gonna read it. I used to get paid for that stuff. I'm not gonna do it for free.
There might be a lot in there that answers a lot of these questions.
Perhaps, but.
Perhaps,
I mean,
yeah.
400 pages of legislative stuff is, it's a lot, so.
Yikes. All right, any other steps you want to take at this stage?
I'm glad we've had a cannabis discussion, and it was when George and I spoke earlier. I said, because like I said, I wasn't part of this when you went through the process for adopting, and I thought it was important that's why I was hoping to meet with each of the commission members. Just
But
like
this is better to do
what are
this
your-
here.
I agree.
And I mean,
I agree.
remembering back when we did those regulations, we hashed, thought about it long and hard, about the retail establishments and cultivation. At that point, we kind of agreed that, no, we didn't really want to, put the large growing operations in our regs.
Yeah,
Unless
because, I mean, a lot of towns in Connecticut rejected it
Because it was all
outright.
new to us, number one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And number two, nobody had any regulations at that point.
Right, and a lot of towns ended up prohibiting.
Saying no,
any of
prohibiting
it,
sales or
retail
anything,
or-
right.
Right.
And
So
I mean, we really
permitted-
didn't want to prohibit everything, but we
Right.
didn't want to open the door wide open
Exactly,
either.
right, right.
And just give carte blanche.
Well, you don't know
Yep.
where it
So-
was going.
We were trying to be cautious, I think, with
Yes.
And
all
the
those
feds haven't
regulations.
even legalized this stuff.
Right. So, I mean, I think the commission has spoken, as far as it's spoken in this, just to what Peter said, which it was considered, we didn't want to totally prohibit retail or cultivation, but to keep it on a scale that fit in with Winston. So it's already been done, so if there's gonna be any change to large scale, I think it requires, a real analysis.
Oh, we need some more information. We
Yeah,
can't
real
make any
analysis.
But,
decision about it.
We've been talking about these parking regulations, for Christ's sake, for 2 years. And we thought it was gonna be a slight modification to our regulation. What the heck?
We got another year to go.
It's going,
Like the driveway regulations, remember?
All right.
Oh, yeah, that was a good one too, right. Okay, well,
there's a
Is
second.
that it? We've had enough discussion on this?
Oh, well, there was one other thing, and yeah, let's just do it here because every time this has come up, I've tried to be very conservative. You got the what's legally required book, and we're trying to still learn that as we're going along. And Adam, I had reached out to in an email, and I said, if this comes forward, originally this was an abutting lot to your property. Now it's changed. You're actually outside the 100-foot or whatever abutting zone. But it's the perception, if you would have a bias one way or another. And obviously whoever's for this or against this could flip it that way. So with ZBA, right now, whenever there's an application and it happens to be in the neighborhood of a commission member, I just ask them, no, don't participate. We can get through without you. And then it doesn't leave the town liable for anything. And I'm proud of myself for the last year and a half. Other than Scott, we've kept the town out of court. We haven't had any issues. So I'm trying to still keep that the way to proceed with our department. So I had asked Adam, if this comes before us, that maybe you don't participate. But George had a great valid point. I mean, this is your backyard in a way. You would have, and you kind of know about this too. So your input could be valid or important in the considerations if it were to come forward. So this is why I thought you and I could have a conversation. If
Yeah.
you felt like you should recuse yourself from it or not.
but those are two
But-
separate issues, whether he participates in discussion and brings whatever knowledge he has to this commission versus whether he votes on it are two separate issues.
Okay.
They can't be commingled, and whether he recuses or not, we're not even close to that issue. But to say that a
No.
board member can't participate in a discussion is, I think that's.
Well, and when there's a public hearing, anybody can participate,
Well,
board
That's right.
member or
And that's
not.
what I said to
But you
Vance.
participate, you
Right.
can participate, because I
They're
recused
not
myself
the
in
same
the past
issue.
Yeah,
because of a conflict of interest to the point
But I
where I
think
left
it-
the room and went into the blue room.
Yeah.
but I think
During
it's
the meeting.
important that, I think about the neighborhood I'm in. We've got 23 houses up there. And if something was going up in the neighborhood, what do we ask everybody to kind of, don't participate because you might influence it, positively or negatively, but I think it's important to get input. That's why we have the public hearing. And you got people that are living close by, they're gonna have a much higher level of expectation of how things are gonna change or potentially could change. But it's good to get the input because none of us live at this particular location that's being considered, except you
He
do.
does, except,
And
I mean,
you do.
when we do get.
but you're not on the commission.
No, but I mean, this is why it's important to have a public hearing, so we can get the,
Yes, people's.
get it verbalized, that we can take that into consideration, we make decisions. But I think
Yeah,
we're
and when we
far away from that at this
Yes.
point.
When we do get the application, we're gonna want in writing from, police chief, fire chief,
Oh, yeah,
fire
absolutely.
marshal, and Jim Rollins, because we're dealing with a road that's substandard. And, like you asked for a traffic count, because we're gonna have to know how many trucks, construction vehicles, whatever, gonna be up and down through there, because that road
Yeah.
cannot handle very much traffic. It's very narrow.
And I'll definitely let Wallace do a presentation.
Yeah.
But here's my question. So right now, the zoning regulations don't allow for it. Are we still accepting it? Like, are we still having them come forward?
I wouldn't vote in favor of this because we don't have anything that's in the regulations that would permit it over there.
Right.
I don't see how we can.
Yeah,
I
neither.
mean, I hate to tell them no, but they're investing money and time
Right.
into this.
Right, they're gonna be
If
putting the
they're-
survey together
If
this
they're
week,
looking
so.
to get us to do a regulation change and present it as that may be part of their application.
All right.
That they want a regulation change, and that's their right to ask for that, if
Yep.
they want. I mean, we've had that happen before.
I think that's what you just said is what I was getting at.
Yeah.
If this is,
But that's gonna take time. I mean,
But if
that's
they
gonna
do
take-
that,
That's
that's
gonna
right.
take a couple of months because of going to the COG and all the legal notices and public hearings required for a regulation change and everything. And there's no guarantee that we will change them.
Right.
so that would be a question you should ask them.
Yes.
Because they might just pull the plug and say, okay, we're out of here.
I mean, I don't wanna say, no, we won't do it. You know, I don't wanna,
But what you're saying
But we
is,
can say that right now, as the
Our
regs
regulations
stay,
don't-
it doesn't permit it, so.
right, based on the regulations, it's not allowed in
Right.
this town.
Okay.
So, I feel like I need to respond for recusal, so everyone hears how I feel about it, right? So absolutely, I wanna be involved in the regulation, creating the regulations. I feel as though they're lacking. Just seeing the proposal letter from our town planner, I feel like we're misleading or do not understand the industry, right?
Right.
Before I moved here, I was at a loss of what I wanted to do with myself, and I just went into farming. So I did veggie farming for 5 years. And I'll tell you that these people at Nova are using the best practices, using the drip irrigation system. That's part of like Connecticut Grow, is they promote the practices that Nova is using, you know. So I applaud them for that, right? And I feel like, I don't know everyone's background, but I'm pretty confident in cultivation of vegetables. So, and it does apply, I think, to here.
And I agree, I looked at the equipment list, I'm very
Yeah.
familiar with a lot of that
I
equipment.
have some of that equipment.
I know, but I'm very familiar with it, and some of it I got online and researched I wasn't familiar with, but it is top of the
Yeah.
line.
Yeah.
It's not junk.
Yep.
Yes.
Agreed. But it's all about planning. If we get to the point where we proceed and they apply, I'm comfortable either way. Whether you guys feel I need to recuse myself, but I feel like I can do it unbiasedly.
So
And
here's the next question I
Yeah.
have for you, and thank you very much, by the
Yeah.
way. Should I encourage them then to go for cannabis cultivator, again, not allowed in the rural residential, but for 15,000 square feet as a start, with the hope that they would expand by next summer, if we change the regulation?
Boy, that's taking.
Am I
a
just
leap.
taking a, all right, I don't know
Only
how badly
because-
they wanna be here, so.
Yeah, right. I mean, they could do
but
a
there's no
micro.
guarantee that there's gonna be the next step to get them the opportunity to
But the
expand.
micro requires it indoors.
Right, right.
Oh,
It's not-
they're not really interested in doing
No,
it. They
I'm-
said
I'm saying
the
that-
indoors is not,
You look at cannabis establishments under
Right, right,
71,
right,
page
right.
71.
Right.
It says must be
I'm on it.
conducted indoors.
Yeah.
All
Okay.
production and storage.
Right.
all right, so that's
Yeah.
one
I mean, that's,
feasible to
that's in the
pitch.
regulations, and that's what we have to adhere to at this
Yeah.
point.
Okay.
But Lance, I mean, they can come in with a proposed regulation change, but, you know,
Yeah, I mean, I'll suggest it,
it's a
but-
long process because we're right where we would be right now as we're talking about it, which is we don't know what the impact of that, we just don't take their word for it. They
Mm-hmm.
propose a regulation change, then we have to research it and decide, put it out then to the board, the public hearing and everything.
Well-
It's a process, so,
Well, just what you're saying, but, you know, we've been talking about a piece of property that the town acquired through, whatever reason, and it's turned into a temporary kind of a parking lot, so now we're trying to get, and that's taken, what, at least a couple of years, and we still haven't gotten a thing done.
right.
So, I mean, this thing is a lot more complicated than a plain old parking lot,
Right.
and there's a lot to it, so I don't know. I mean, we don't make decisions quickly here, unfortunately, and I
Well,
think.
we don't make decisions, I mean, besides that, George, it has to comply with the regs.
Well, no, I
If it's
totally.
not- If it's not in there.
Oh, no, I totally agree, but I'm saying, that how long does it take us to make a modification to our regulations? It's not, you know, one meeting and a
Right,
public
no,
hearing.
of course. I mean, the process itself takes longer than
Yeah.
that, yeah.
So I don't, best thing to do is get back to them and tell them what took place at our meeting, and
Yep.
maybe they'll just pull a plug and run to some other town. I don't know. Our regulation doesn't permit it right now, in my
Right.
mind. And I think
Okay.
it's been said that tonight, so.
Okay.
All right. Had enough conversation?
Can I ask a question?
Sure, go ahead.
Somewhere in all of this discussion, it was, somebody had brought up, and I think Nova did too, because I was on their site looking, they're looking at enriched soil or good quality soil.
Mhm.
Has anybody done any soil testing over there?
Don't know.
Maybe it's too soon, they don't own it, so maybe they don't have the right to do that.
Well, they did determine they've got topsoil there, but
Yeah, I would imagine that if they haven't, it's probably in the pipeline of what they would want to
Yeah.
figure out, because they did that for
Bless you.
Scott's property when they had an agreement in place.
It's either Yukon or USGov has an overlay of the soils for farming soils, and they do have prime soils for farming, and they do have, it's, I forget what layer it is, because I don't know, I'm just obsessed with that type of stuff. But it is out there. I'm not sure if they did any soil sampling themselves. I think they were just out to the site the first time. But
Yeah,
right,
Woodsville
so
County Soil Conservation District has those maps and stuff available.
you pull a soil, it takes 3 days to get a sample, like, and analyze, but.
I'm just wondering how much they would sample, because I think around the farmhouse itself, it's not good soil. Just because it's been a farm for a
Right.
100 years. So there's a lot of oils and gas and other.
Yeah, looking at the maps, it's gonna be a distance away from the buildings, down and back and off to the left of the buildings, looking at the maps we were supplied.
Yeah.
So it'd be far enough away from the farmhouse and the
But
buildings.
it's a good point. I mean,
Yeah,
right. Oh, yeah.
absolutely.
would there be remediation issues because of the nature of the,
Well, and they have to deal with Torrington Area Health, the
Right.
septic system, because they're gonna have
Right.
bathrooms there,
Right,
and,
right,
you know.
Porta potties to start, but yes, and they would want
Well, and that's
to
another
use the
source of
house.
dick in our regulations.
yeah, right,
Porta potties that we need to talk about
yeah.
more.
Okay. You have enough to go back to them and talk to them about
Yeah.
where we are?
Yeah.
You're gonna
Yeah.
you're gonna contact the COG, get something in writing if you
Mhm.
can. Because we're gonna have to make some determination about where we're
And
going.
be sure to ask them within this context if they've considered, given that that just passed 3 weeks ago. It's important to know within that context whether they've already been asked questions or been considering what's going on or what else is going on in the state regarding that. That's pretty quick. I mean, nothing usually turns that quickly around
Okay,
government.
all right. The other thing, there's been, a previous meeting, we talked about people having some interest in
Oh, thank you.
painting sides of buildings.
Oh, you want to talk about that too? Yeah.
Yeah.
But before we go to that, can we talk about our summit meeting?
Oh, sure.
I forgot about it until
Yeah.
you just reminded me. So this is again, a lot of things have come up with zoning board of appeals. It's like, what was really the intent of the regulation? This 400 square foot decks was a great conversation. We're like, well, does that mean just for one deck, or is it supposed to be for all the decks on the property? We've been saying if anybody is proposing decks over 400 square feet total, they have to come before ZBA for determination. Again, we always try to be more conservative in how we interpret it, but there's been a few things that have come up that are weird. It's like, what exactly does this mean? So it was pitched that we maybe should have a summit meeting with all the land use boards of ZBA representatives or the whole board, some people from obviously planning and zoning, and then we thought inland wetlands as well, and a lot with the impervious pavers that we've gotten a lot of applications for.
Well, and that's what I was talking last today. We did try for quite a while to do that.
Tried it.
And we finally did. And I think everybody was very pleased that we did, and we had a good session. So I don't think that anybody's opposed to that, are we?
I think it's, well, it's needed.
Okay,
Definitely.
I agree, and I think it would
that's
be really
how-
helpful.
And that's what I was saying to you. That's how we can revise, regulations that aren't working the way we thought they'd work. And, but we have to really have because watching that ZBA meeting, I'm thinking, oh.
Well, trying to figure it out on the fly was not the way to do it.
No,
and-
no.
Yeah,
But it's because it didn't have an application that was presented that could give the board enough information so they could make a decision, and if they did, it then could be enforced
Right.
and evaluated. So that's, you talked about somebody who's gonna be overseeing that because they're involved, but somebody's gotta be the boss as far as verifying, because we got uncertified people that are in here right now. So somebody's gotta over their shoulders look.
The weird thing is we all questioned why in the zoning table it didn't have the building height, but we just let it go forward anyway. And of course, it became an issue at the meeting. So I don't know.
Had the what?
We don't have that in there.
No, I'm sorry, on that one particular application that's coming back. It was like, we didn't have in the zoning table on the plans what the building
on
height
their
was,
stuff.
existing, proposed.
Because we've got it in our regulations.
Right, and so I don't know, we all talked about it, I don't know why it didn't like
Well,
get
whatever,
answered.
I don't think it's any of our
Right,
jobs to
but-
try to, you know, pin somebody up against the wall, but.
We should go back to our zoning regs for that height. You can play around with, the drop dimensions to the average grade, and you could end up with this.
Yeah,
You could end up with 80 sheer feet
Right.
and still be,
within the, yeah,
Yeah.
yep.
But it's an average height all the way around the building, so you've got sloping.
Right, but if you increase your drop dimensions upslope by doing these like a deck here or a porch here, and all of a sudden a porch gets 1, 2, 3, 4 drop dimensions versus a straight wall only gets 2.
We're talking about the soil, the
See-
ground.
Yeah,
not- not the deck.
I'll
The
have to do a
original-
diagram for you.
Height requirements had all that mapped out in it.
I know we
I
did.
don't know when they got changed, but it showed, I can remember the pictures.
There were
It showed the
pictures
picture, then it showed a straight line going across it with the measurements on the sides,
Yeah,
and it was very clear and
we don't have that
past,
now.
no.
I don't know how we lost it.
No,
because-
no, it's still in there under Highland Lake. I know exactly what you're talking about.
All right, well, let's,
But these are kind of the things that we'd like to talk
It's a
about.
calculation of average grade, and you do a drop point at each corner. And if you have more corners on the high side, your upslope will disproportionately raise the grade.
Do a diagram for us.
You're talking
I
about
know,
this
I'll
one,
have to
right?
do
I'll get it if you do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, we refer to this all the time. So,
so it's in there.
What
But
page
it's
is it,
not-
what page is it?
well,
Plans?
your
not in
page
the-
might be different,
Yeah,
but it's
we
on
got-
page 12 on
everybody's
this
got different-
version.
This is what the problem is, why we
Page
don't.
12, Willie? Page 12?
I don't have that.
It's in the Highland Lake District.
I'll just set up a mirror house with a porch on the front versus a porch on the rear. And it'll be the same height, but by calculation, it'll show different height off average
Well,
grade.
this is an average height too, so
Yeah, yeah.
it's like, well,
It's just the way the math works.
It's our math guy.
oh, he's.
It's our math guy.
That's right, so we get him.
Math
You're assigned
wins.
to this.
Right.
I look at it online and it's a different page, different,
Not the same.
because it
Oh, well,
talks about,
And what's online is another problem.
Right.
yeah.
It's not consistent.
Can we get this resolved? I mean,
Yes.
Holy mackerel. What does that mean? We can get it resolved, but does it mean in the next 10
I mean, we
years?
don't have to wait for the parking regulations to be finished. What I'd like to do is just have the 6 things that we changed last year incorporated into the zoning
We
regs,
should,
and then
and we all
just
have a
reprint
standard
them.
book that
Talking
we're
about
using.
existing
Right.
pre-construction slope. Talks about pre-construction slope, and that's what was presented to us.
That's what's
the
online.
Pre-construction, so
slope.
pre-existing.
And that was in the zoning regulations that were online.
All right.
You wanna talk about murals?
Well, if there's been a question, somebody's got an interest in doing one of the big buildings in town. And not presented what they wanna do with it, but to do something with it.
Yep.
And, the children's facility up on, is it Prospect, right?
Yeah.
And then Morsel Monk did their side of the building. But, you know, we've got signage regulations and we've got a architectural review.
So I was just gonna mention is now we're very much in favor of like architectural review gets a first stab at taking a peek at all these things and then giving their comments. Public art, well, when the town's money's involved, we have more say, but if it's public art on a private building, we can give some suggestions, and you can't do content. I mean, you can strongly persuade, if anything's offensive
Can it
or
be
anything like
prohibited
that.
at all? I mean, just prohibited?
Prohibited murals? I actually
You
don't.
mean
think
every
that'd
house
be
in
good.
town could draw their own mural on their property? Oh, Lord. Yeah.
Rista was saying that.
Don't put that on camera. People are gonna think about doing that now.
Believe me,
Um,
they've already thought of it.
But you're right. So Morsel Monk, obviously, that's an old one that should have come before an architectural review board and pitched what
And I
their
think that
concept
If you
was.
go back through, before my time on planning and zoning, there was a house on High Street that had cannabis leaves painted on it.
That's
that
right.
Oh, Jesus.
Got quite testy.
Yep.
Before I was on planning and zoning, but the town did make them paint it over. So.
All right.
Under what, based on what? though?
I
Light?
don't remember.
I
but
don't
just
either.
remember
I
that it
remember
was-
the
it was-
controversy,
had to
but I
be
don't
removed.
remember.
They
Had to be
strongly
covered.
dissuaded him.
So,
Well, right, you gotta have a, yeah. That's why I'm saying, there's nothing in our regs about it, correct?
Oh, Jesus.
So should there be a reg about it?
long time ago.
didn't look for it, yeah.
Put it on the, let's look at regs list.
All right. Anybody else have anything for,
The church down the street here, I noticed the windows are out of it.
Which
The
church?
Methodist church?
Yeah,
Methodist church.
all the ground, the lower windows are gone and some of the upper windows are gone.
it's the one up next to the
Museum?
museum?
Yeah,
High Street?
630 Main
the one that
Street?
got bought out
Yeah,
by
they're
the,
gonna make a
That's the old
studio or
Methodist
something
church.
out of it.
That's the
They
Methodist
just finally
church.
mowed it.
yeah, they mowed it, but there was like dark holes there, no windows.
All right.
Oh, no kidding.
He has been opening the windows for some reason. I'm guessing for circulation. So,
Well,
but
the
we can go
bottom
look
windows, I
into
don't
it.
think could open all the way, I don't know.
Okay. Well,
It
thanks.
just appeared to me that the windows were gone.
Yeah, I'll take a look.
Yeah, I'm gonna drive right by there on the way home.
Okay. Well, we haven't
Okay.
accomplished a lot. Any more comments or suggestions?
No, I'm good.
Okay. Charlene?
I think.
I mean, we have to, to me, all of this stuff falls under planning. We do a lot of zoning stuff.
Yeah.
But we're a planning commission and we
Yeah.
really don't have planning meetings where we
We-
come in like
I
once a
know,
month
we're
and do a
supposed to do
planning
that the
meeting.
first
Years
one of the
ago,
month.
We set up the first meeting of the month. It was
Yes.
a planning meeting.
Okay, but we haven't had one since I've been on the
I
board,
agree.
so,
Well,
We had two.
we have?
We had two. And then it fell apart because we got busy again.
Yeah, okay.
But I would like to do that again.
I mean,
Well, it
you
makes
wanna
sense.
talk about these things and say,
Right.
should we have regs, should we change regs?
But it's up to your office to, when you set these things up, is to give us the opportunity to
Right,
focus on what we really wanna be doing.
right. Well, I'm glad you guys took the time tonight to kind of vent some of these things out. It was helpful.
All right.
Yeah, I would really like to get, I mean, now July 8th meeting could be filled again, but,
I don't have any problem with that as long as we're not going to 1 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
I mean, we got to burn out, that's not good. But if the applications are complete, so that we've got the regulations met, we can make decisions.
Mhm.
And, but if we have to make it up as we go, I mean, it's gonna get bogged down. We're
Right.
gonna get stuck. So anybody else have any comments?
I guess, this coming in, right? It's not in our regulations, and now we're almost through our budget phase, right? We got a whole new board and a new town planner. You're probably gonna see or be exposed to maybe newer things, right? Or new proposals, like you gotta let us know ahead of time if we need to check our zoning regs for anything else. that we're
Well, especially what Peter's been looking for is this thing with the school.
Oh, and I was gonna bring that up, yeah. I mean,
I'm trying,
yeah.
as
No,
you
I
saw.
mean, and we got, the information we got from Gilbert is great. All we need to know from Worcester School System, what are the capacity of the two buildings they have? How many students can they fit in there?
So the problem is, I don't think it's an answer that they can answer, frankly. I think you need someone who, like, if you looked at it strictly like, okay, what is the building
Well,
maximum
no, I
for
know,
a
if
classroom?
the fire marshal looks at it, he
Right.
goes room by room, and
But
There's
you'll
so
never
many-
have 40 kids in a
There's
classroom.
so many square
'cause
feet
that'll
based
never
on the age,
happen.
no, there's so many square feet based on the age of the student
Right.
that you need in each classroom. And that's
Right.
enough maximum number they can put in that classroom.
But they've separated
But, you know, yeah.
the rooms and how they're being used, where
Right.
you don't have anybody or one or.
But I mean, if they need the help of the fire marshal before he retires,
Yeah.
you know, whatever, I think the school board or the superintendent should have an idea. What is their maximum capacity? Because we as a planning board are sitting here looking at additional apartments,
Right.
possibly. I know there's at least 3 new houses, maybe 4 being built this summer in town. How many more students can they handle in the school buildings they have? Because we're talking about 10 million with a cannabis farm. What's a new school gonna cost? If they don't have room for students?
I do have a site for it, by the way.
I know, we got.
We have no
100
money to
We've
build
got
it,
a
but
nice 118 acre site with utilities, okay, that they wanna sell, but, whatever, but I'm just saying, we need
I
this
know.
as a planning board.
yeah,
Because as far as I'm concerned, we can't approve any more, you know, whether it's apartment complexes or subdivisions
no
or
idea.
whatever, until we have that information.
We've
Because
been
I, as a
looking for that
taxpayer,
For years, too.
right,
Just
exactly.
haven't gotten it.
I mean, we've got it from Gilbert, we've got something from them, so we know, and they're dealing with half the students roughly with junior high and high school. And that's, I think, an even harder issue to try to determine how many, because they move classrooms throughout the day with the students. Where the lower grades are in one classroom that whole day, so I would think the school system could tell us what's your capacity.
so what's helpful is having the the plans from the Hinsdale, renovation work.
Right.
And that's what I was working from. It's like, okay, well, and my wife's a teacher, so I know, Jen would
Right.
know too. Is
Yeah.
it like 23 kids you can have with one
Yeah.
teacher, and then as soon as you have more,
And it's all
you need
based
a
on grade level
paraprofessional?
and age, too.
Right, and there's
Because
high
I've been
school
part
is
of
less strict.
several school building committees over the years, with several different
So
schools
I'm,
in town.
I don't think we'll ever get a true number, but I could get you probably a ballpark
Well, we
of
need
what
ballpark.
we could do.
I mean,
Yeah.
Well,
Yes.
things change too, the
Right.
requirements for special ed and so
Yes.
forth
Right.
that they incorporate, so
Right,
that.
and if they bring
changes.
special ed into school, then they may lose a classroom or, things like that. We understand that, but we've gotta have some information for us to work with. That's where I'm coming from. I'm not trying to be
No,
a pain in the rear,
and,
but.
and I'm trying.
Pursuing.
No, I know you are, and I appreciate your effort. I mean, that's why I want to thank you very much for that
Yeah, you're
last
welcome.
night.
And I know when you guys don't hear from me, you probably just think I'm blowing it off, but no, we're like literally that busy. It's not a sleepy town.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on
No,
right now.
there is.
All right,
Okay, that's
anything
one.
else,
Yeah.
folks?
I got several.
Oh, you do,
We're
okay.
gonna be here till 10 o'clock, Joe. We had talked about the earth excavation permit up on West Wakefield. What's
Yeah.
been done with that?
So
Has that been
thank you for
issued,
bringing
or-
that up. And I think George's suggestion is probably the most appropriate way to move forward. So they were planning on coming either tonight or next meeting for a public hearing, but because you guys really vetted that whole,
We had a
Process
public
out.
hearing and covered the
Right.
information.
We had a
on
lot of
the 8th.
information, but we didn't give the exact conditions.
we did though. So
Well, not all
it's-
of them.
The only one that was questioned was the 4 truck trips or,
Right.
an hour.
And I said we'd save that till we did the permit.
Right, and I think for Jim and Phil's sake, who we're working with, they're fine with that. So we'll put it in the,
Right.
because we haven't done the letter for the earth
Yeah, and my
excavation.
concern, I mean, not just the roads, but if they're gonna be doing this during the summertime, you've got
Right,
the beach with all the people walking across from the parking lot to the beach. Recreation has programs there
right.
all summer.
What about a tracking pad for when they're coming in and out of the project and putting all that material on West Wakefield that just gets washed into the lake?
Good point.
Yes, that should be,
They didn't have that in there?
That was on their plan.
I
Yeah, I
thought it
think
was
they
on the
did.
plans.
It's gotta be
Yeah, but
maintained.
that,
Can't be there once.
when we reviewed those plans, it was for like work on the site. It wasn't like
Well, that's
a
before we
major
knew they were gonna
100
move 1,200 yards of
1,300
material out
yards
there.
of fill.
Okay. I'll note it.
90 trucks leaving the property. It was more like, excavators going in and doing their driveway and stuff like that. It wasn't for
Yep.
a major thing. We weren't given all that information at the time.
Well, I mean, they'll still come for you if you want, but
You know something?
What are your feelings?
The problem
I-
that I see in this, Lance, and I've said it to you, it's should have been incorporated when we had the special permit, public hearing, and it should have been a complete.
And I want to also reiterate, I totally dropped the ball on that because I
Okay,
didn't
no,
know
I'm
that
just
they
saying
needed
that
to go
that's-
for the earth
But
excavation.
I don't think
So
they
that
should
was
be,
my fault.
I don't think they should be penalized
Right,
as long as they're fulfilling what we've talked about.
right, which I think they
Yeah,
are fine
I
with.
mean, we kind of set conditions that night, and we discussed conditions, but
We did.
Yep.
I think, agent determination by Jeff.
But the
um,
permit, your point, Pete, is that the permit should lay it out
Well,
explicitly.
yeah, we need conditions
Yes.
on it.
And it's not on, we
No.
don't have it yet,
And-
so.
No, no, but that's.
Yeah, that's
They're
fine.
working on
We-
it. Right,
Right, we haven't sent it yet, so
yeah, yeah.
I,
Okay.
We've at
if
least
there's anything
discussed
else
the
you think we should,
conditions, and Jeff can
No.
do that as an agent determination for the board.
yeah,
And we had a public hearing and nobody showed up even from the neighborhood.
right.
Right.
So I think, we covered it as far as.
Yeah, I don't
what
wanna
the
delay them,
requirements are, but-
hold them up any longer, but I do wanna make sure the conditions we've
catches
discussed
everything.
are put on that
Yep.
permit.
All right, what else?
Just want to say that the timing of the earth excavation has to occur after the public hearing is closed. And I think we started talking about it after it closed. But in our regulations, it states explicitly that the public hearing must be closed prior to submission of, or prior to, not submission, but
Estimate?
Commencement of work,
giving them the
Permit.
special permit for earth excavation. Issuance, I think is the word.
True.
Okay.
So we did it right.
Good.
you read the regs.
Whoops.
No, I've been going back and forth with you and Jeff on 60 South Main Street with the porta pot.
Yes.
And Jeff has written me back what's going on, but number one, we don't allow them. I realize the rec department uses them, DEP uses them, but they're temporary.
Right.
This has been outside, and it sounds like they plan on leaving it there
Yeah, it's
year
on the
round.
sidewalk now.
And it's on our main thoroughfare,
Where's this?
on the sidewalk, 60
The
South
Sunoco
Main Street
station.
to Sunoco.
Sunoco Station.
First, they had the porta pot there in the handicap parking place, so you couldn't park there.
Uh-huh.
Now they've moved it, because they've been notified by Jeff, they moved it to the sidewalk, blocking an exit door
Right,
to the building, and it's still sitting there.
right.
Then they've taken up half of another parking place with Blue Flame or whatever propane tanks there. And from what I can remember, I mean, when we did that building and approved it, I thought the parking was kind of at a minimum there. So, I mean, they've kind of lost the parking place also. But my big bitch is porta pot on that site. There shouldn't be one, and it
All
should
right,
be
well,
removed
tell them then it's gotta be
immediately.
removed. Okay.
If they needed another bathroom, that should have been done when they came in with the plans to build a new building.
Okay.
And one last thing, I mean, know it's in Barkhamsted, but I see no activity with Tractor Supply there. Has anybody from the town reached out to Tractor Supply or the company? I know they've done test borings down there a few
Where,
weeks
at
ago.
Ledgebrook?
Yeah,
I thought
but,
they had,
what's that?
I thought they
No,
had.
not at
No,
Ledgebrook.
Mallory Brook.
Mallory Brook Plaza,
Oh, Mallory
but
Brook.
there's been no activity there. I talked to the fire marshal in Barkhamsted, and, the proposal is all supposed to tear down the theaters, build a new building out front, which is where they took the test borings. But I just
That's
hate,
in the-
I just hate losing it from Winston to
Yeah,
Barkhamsted.
oh, I agree.
That's in the same plaza, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's in Mallory Brook, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I saw
But-
some minutes from Park Hampstead, but I don't recall. I
Yeah,
know that- I know
but
they're
they had done
planning.
some test borings there, but they were supposed to be tearing down the theater first and then building a whole new building out
Yeah.
towards 44 in the front. But I
It's
just,
all wetlands out there too before.
it's all filled, that was all filled in, so.
So maybe they'll be back.
Well, I'm just saying, somebody from the town, I just hate losing them. At least reach out to them.
Yeah.
Good
I'm
point.
hoping, maybe there's issues that they are running into there, and they may look at coming back to us. They had a very good, nice plan, very detailed, everything was there.
Yeah.
I mean, so we had very few issues with it, other than an adjoining property owner, but I don't know how to address that we can't. But,
Okay.
I'd like to at least have someone reach out to them from the town to get them back here,
Yep.
whatever we can do to help them.
Can you do that?
Yeah, that's actually gonna become more of my wheelhouse with EDC.
Well, I
So
mean,
I can
yeah,
absolutely-
Ted's leaving, and he'll
Right.
be gone in another month or
Yeah.
less, and
We brought up
No.
the Pepper property.
Oh, thank you. Finally got a hold of somebody who could make a decision down there. They tried to do it online with the open.gov and they couldn't find the address because it's just 0 Torrington Road and there's a bunch of 0 Torrington Roads. So I was able to give Shane actually today the map block lot, and they were able to fill up their application. So hopefully they've just put that in
You
motion.
have an application?
Yeah.
Okay, because they
So
got
they-
a lot of stuff.
They
there.
said they still have no intention of doing any excavation, but if they're gonna need to renew that permit, they're more than willing. So I was like,
All right, well, as long as we get something, because it's.
yeah, we've talked to like 3 different people there, but it wasn't the right people, so we're finally at that point. But yeah, it's taken a while.
Dan Stout, you didn't talk to him?
Dan's people. So,
So, while we're on these things, I'll just bring up something I'm recalling on Route 20. Why is that Grappo Drive thing now become a parking lot for construction equipment?
The point.
yeah, so I met with him. He's actually gonna be coming forward with his building. Or no, he already got approval for it, right? So now he's in the process now of finally building it. But I think he has plans.
He's
But-
been using it as a parking lot for 2 years.
Well, he's been working at it slowly forever. So we brought up the 5-year, and then that got extended because of COVID.
Right.
But
Okay.
what's the limitation now? This has been a long time.
Let's
know.
check,
I'd have to
because
ask.
every time I drive by it, I think of it.
Yeah.
It's become a storage facility.
Oh, I agree.
Outdoor
Yeah.
storage facility for
Exactly.
construction equipment.
We did I think it was last week actually, we're out on his property. And talked to him about
Good.
the plan for the garage.
Anything else, folks?
I said, okay, so, set it off.
That's it? What about you, Willie? You usually-
I'm done.
You're done.
Willie's done, I'm done.
You're done. Charlene?
Motion to adjourn.
Before you adjourn, I want to give you a thank you. Please don't ever take any of my emails with a tone. There's no tone. I'm literally just trying to learn. So,
You just kept it
whatever. So just, Rista, woo, had a really nice conversation today with her, and I said, Rista, I am not threatened by you at all. I'm so grateful for any advice you give me. So, just know, with experience, these things will get so much easier. But right now, Jeff and I are still case by case, just trying to do the best we can. So if you've got something you can help us with, please share. I'm never offended. We're a team. So,
Just a question for you, that property up on West Road that was renumbered?
yeah,
Was part of that in Goshen?
no,
No, it's
No.
all in Winchester.
Yep.
Yeah, that's good. Well, that'll be good to have a house there, something
All
nice.
right, we had a motion to adjourn. Do you have a second?
Second.
Second. Any questions? All in favor?
Good,
We're out of here.
excellent.
Thank you.
So we did accomplish something. Well done.